Commissioner Garrettson. Here. Commissioner Jacko. Here. Commissioner Rosler. Here. Commissioner Looney. Here. And Student Commissioner McKenna. Is Student Commissioner Carla here? Here? Okay, thank you very much. All present.
Thank you, Ms. Turley. Next on our agenda, is the approval of the minutes from the October 20th meeting. Are there any changes that need to be made, or are we going to entertain a motion? Commissioner Fleming.
Move we approve the minutes.
Commissioner Carroll.
I'll second the motion.
Having a motion and a second, please vote. Please note that the minutes passed unanimously with the exception of Commissioner Rosler abstaining. All right. Ms. Chow, are there any agenda changes for this evening's meeting?
Good evening, Chairman Kramer. No changes tonight.
Okay. And before we begin, a couple of things. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on anything that is not on this evening's agenda? Didn't see any speaker slips, but I thought I would check. All right. Ms. Chow, are we going to have the swearing in of our two new?
If both students could meet me at the podium, please.
Thank you, ladies. We are very glad to have you. And what we're going to do on every one of the meetings is, prior to us making a vote, I will ask you whether or not you would like to come up to the podium and make comments. Don't feel like you have to, but if you want to, we would really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Chow, let's open the public hearing and tell us all about PC 6-060, Ridge Road Annexation, Presidio Vista, Manna Investments, please.
Good evening, Chairman Kramer, Planning Commissioners, Patsy Chow, City Planner with the Community Development Department. The first public hearing item before you this evening is concerning an annexation request, pre-zoning, and a tentative subdivision map for an 11.4 acre site north of Ridge Road, west of South Melrose Drive. The particular project would allow for subdivision to create 31 single-family residential lots that would be ranging in size from approximately 10,000 square feet to about 15,000 square feet. The proposed density would be at 2.7 dwelling units per acre. There would be associated drainage improvements, wet, dry utilities. There are 2 private streets being proposed, and just a note that no homes are proposed at this time, and future homes would comply with the proposed zone which would be R1 zone. So this is an aerial photo of the subject project site at the center of the picture. Again, with the pre-zoning would be the R1 zone to match and be consistent with the designated land use in the general plan, which is medium low density, and that would be at 5 dwelling units per acre. The site is surrounded to the north and to west and the east by residential properties. There are existing plant nurseries south of Ridge Road, as shown on the slide. The land use designation, again, is MLD, which is medium-low density, at 5 dwelling units per acre, shown in yellow. That's pretty accurate of all the western side of the Sunset Island area being designated as so. And the rezoning, the pre-zoning would be R1 to match the designation. Key issues on this particular project start from general plan consistency, meaning that, yes, the proposed project will be consistent with the existing general plan designation within that area of medium-low density. And again, the R1 zone to match the designation based on the proposed lot sizes at 10,000 square feet, which is the minimum requirement for the R1 zone to be at 10,000 square feet. In terms of drainage and sewer issues, the proposed project would connect to an existing sewer system that's located off of Melrose Way to the north of the subject project site. And there will be also a proposed storm drain system that would be connecting onto Ridge Road. With the proposed storm drain system, what that would do is it would help improve the existing on-site drainage conditions, because there are a lot of different discharge locations on the site going in a northerly and a southerly direction. And so the proposed drainage system would actually help consolidate these different locations and control cross-lot drainage, or basically, in a whole, it would help address or improve the conditions out there. Basically, the storm drain system will be comprised of modified roll curbs, inlets, PVC drain pipes. There is a larger detention basin, which I'll be showing you on the tentative map on the eastern portion of the site, and all of that obviously to improve the conditions out there. I just wanted to mention, back in January of this year, the applicant held an outreach, a neighborhood meeting with the adjacent property owners to inform them of the proposed annexation along with the tentative subdivision map. So I felt it was important to mention that, and there are some neighbors there in the audience here who have attended that meeting. So as far as some pictures, I just wanted to share some depictions starting on the upper left. Looking northwest at the site, there's an existing slopes and a basin there that's located at that portion on the easterly end of the project site on Ridge Road. The lower picture, still on the left side of the screen, looking north, immediately at the site, there's an existing plant nursery there, palm trees, boxed palm trees that have been there since the mid-2000s. The middle pictures are just depicting nurseries that are located across the street on Ridge Road to the south of the subject project site. In the distance, vacant property, and again, plant nurseries in the far distance. And then all the way to the right of the slide, just looking down Ridge Road, looking west, and then looking east, basically single-family dwellings when you're looking east. And then I just wanted to point out where the project site in relationship to the above-ground utility lines there on that picture. Also wanted to identify Melrose Way, because that's where the sewer is coming from. North of the subject project site, the picture on the left is looking north towards Melrose Way, where there is existing sewer easements, and then where the existing 8-inch sewer pipe is going to be extended to provide services to the subdivision that's being proposed. And then the other picture is just looking south on the same, off of Melrose Way. So the tentative map, again, comprised of 31 single-family lots. You have 2 private streets, A and B, a bioretention basin, which is Lot A at the easterly, kind of southeasterly corner of the project site. And then there is an existing 20-foot wide sewer easement that's east of Lot 10, and also a 10-foot sewer easement that's located off-site just north of the 20-foot wide sewer easement that's extending off this project site, and it allows for the proposed 8-inch sewer lateral to be connected to the existing 8-inch sewer line that's coming off of Melrose Way to the north of the subdivision that's being proposed. In terms of the landscaping, the subject landscape concept plan meets the landscape ordinance as far as provision of street trees and slope erosion control materials. There's use of native as well as non-native plant materials, but mostly native plant materials. And there's also going to be a 5-foot-high vinyl perimeter fence and a 3-foot-high rail fence along Ridge Road. A mitigated neg deck was prepared for the project and available for public review from August 27th through September 25th. The city received 6 comments letters, and all of them were responded to and included as part of the draft MND, included in your packets. And again, just to reiterate, the general plan consistency as far as being a proposed density of 2.7 dwelling units per acre, which is below what it's allowed in the general plan, which is 5 dwelling units per acre. And again, the project as proposed, the subdivision itself, and future homes when they do come in will meet the development standards of the R1 zone. With that, the staff's recommendation includes the following 3 resolutions, which will be 1, to recommend City Council's approval of the mitigated neg deck and the mitigation monitoring reporting program. There will be also another resolution recommending City Council as far as making an application to Local Agency Formation Commission for purposes of the annexation and the reorganization of the subject parcels. And the last but not least would be a recommendation to City Council for approving the tentative subdivision map and the pre-zoning to R1 to allow for the 31-lot subdivision. And that pretty much concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chow. Commissioner Fleming, please.
On the map that you presented right off the bat, there was a breakdown of what was being annexed, and there was a section next to it that was not being annexed. Is there a reason for that? Because logically, a little line across Ridge Road, and that brings it in. Is that something that we're looking at to do later? Is that something that they don't want to have happen? Do you know the story on that?
Sure. The area that you speak of, which is just east of the project site, the whole area, or the majority of this part, which is in the western portion of Sunset Island, falls what's identified by the state as being a disadvantaged, unincorporated community area. And by state law, we're required to ask the adjacent property owners whether they would like to be part of the annexation project because of how they are identified per state law. And so that's one of the requirements from LAFCO. And through the mailings, through reaching out to the particular neighbors, through conversations, correspondence that were formally sent out to these neighbors, there was a majority not wanting to be part of the annexation. So a lot of them actually, or the majority of them, opposing being part of the annexation. So at that point, we cannot at that point necessarily require them or obligate them to be part. But what we did in the project, this particular project the applicant is proposing, which is the annexation of the entire width of Ridge Road all the way to the westerly end of the project site. And that's what creates your question as to those properties in between. But that exercise was done, and the applicant did that part.
Thank you. That's all I have of you right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Carroll, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Chow, Ridge Road, the city doesn't have any requirement for a sidewalk along that road when it's improved?
Correct. It's identified as a semi-rural public street, which there is a 6-foot landscape parkway, but not a sidewalk.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Garrettson, please.
Actually, that was one of my questions. So basically, there's going to be no improvement on the ability to walk up Ridge Road as a result of this construction.
Correct. As far as not having a sidewalk, that is true.
So what about drainage? Because that seems to be a major problem on that road now. And with houses there, it's going to be more runoff for sure with sidewalks or with roads and driveways.
I would like to point out on the cover sheet of the tentative map, there's a detail section of the Ridge Road improvements, which will be comprised actually of half street improvements, which does include a modified rolled curb, and half of it plus 12 feet on the other side of the center line. So there will be improvements as far as drainage on the street itself, directing the water, as well as the drainage on site on the private property that's basically directing the water towards the detention basin on the eastern end of the project site, and the improvements of a storm drain, a 24-inch line on Ridge Road itself. So drainage will be addressed, but unfortunately, part of the street proposed street that they're following the code does not include a paved sidewalk.
So what protects the houses across the street from the water running off from this development onto the street and into those driveways across the street, Ridge Road?
Basically, the water is being directed through storm drain, through the way that the site is being proposed. The grading on the site is directing the water into a southeasterly direction to go into that detention basin. That detention basin will actually, the water is being directed to that point, and it is basically collecting the water and slowly discharging that into the storm drain system on Ridge Road at the easterly end of the project site on the street itself. And then eventually it's going to hit the culvert, an existing culvert that's just east. Well, on this drawing, let me see if I can probably do with the pointer here. There's a culvert right here that will actually the water will be directed into that existing culvert. So first, again, the drainage on the site will be from a westerly to an easterly direction into that detention basin.
And it will go in a storm drain?
Correct.
Or will go down the street?
Correct. There's a storm drain, a 24-inch storm drain improvement in the road that will actually direct the water towards the culvert.
What about from the west to the east? Where does that water flow? How does that water flow?
It's basically through the streets, through the private streets, through the way the site is laid out. It's directing the water. There's a couple of points right here. Let me see if I can get this. Oops. There is a, let's start with the brow ditch, I guess, on this end of the project right here that's directing the water in the detention basin. There's also a storm drain easement right here on the side of this lot. And there's also inlets that are actually going to direct the water at these points right here in the entrance in the driveway towards the meeting the storm drain improvements.
Directs them toward that retention basin.
Correct.
And are they on the surface? Are they in a below surface?
The proposed storm drain?
Run? Because that's the highest elevation.
Correct.
And all these houses are going to be higher than the houses across the street.
Correct.
So if that water isn't going down Ridge, it's going to go into their driveways.
Well, it's going to go into hit on those inlets, and then where I pointed it out with this laser's kind of, it's going to point out, it's going to drain and direct the water into the inlets that are proposed as part of the project, and go underneath into the storm drain system under the street, and then eventually discharging to the culvert. So it's not flowing on the street itself. Is obviously the street, private street A and B, that's helping collect the water, but it's eventually is all going to flow down into the detention.
So there is a storm drain that exists from the westernmost part of this all the way down.
It's proposed. It doesn't exist. It's being proposed.
That's being proposed
Right.
with this development.
Correct.
So the developer would have to put the storm drain in.
Correct. The improvements would have to come in with the development, because right now there is a high point in the middle of the project site, and the water is just going everywhere, to the north, to the south, to the neighbors to the east, across the street. So it's just going pretty much anywhere. So the whole idea with the development is to direct the water through the system to eventually hit the detention basin at that corner.
What about the sewer line that goes through there? Will that help any of the neighbors, or does that just apply to this development?
The sewer that's being proposed is specifically addressing the project site, so it's allowing them to connect to existing 8-inch offsite that's coming off of Melrose Way to the north. But it's not addressing other neighbors or allowing others to connect to it. It's mainly for the project.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Jackal, please.
Thank you. I had wondered about the sidewalks too, but my other question is there only one way into the neighborhood then from Ridge Road?
Correct. One point of access.
Okay.
Thank you. Blair Truitt, please. Please state your name and give your address for the record.
Good evening. Blair Pruitt. My address is 1236 Hygeia Avenue in Encinitas, California. Thank you for the opportunity to have our application heard this evening. I represent the applicant, as I mentioned, and wanted to introduce Rod Bradley and Dale Clark of BHA, our civil engineer of record. They can speak to some of the questions that were raised as well. Also, Chris Mendiera of LLG, who's our traffic engineer of record. There's no formal presentation for you all this evening, but we're happy to make ourselves available to answer any questions that you have.
Good. I think we have some. Commissioner Looney, please.
This is directed to Ms. Chow. On the street drainage, is there ever a time when drainage from curb and gutter is drained onto the private property in that drainage basin? Or does it always go to more of a public drainage system? Because we have the basin in Lot A, where all the site drainage is going into that.
Correct.
Is there ever a condition where the street water goes into a private drainage basin?
I think ultimately it's supposed to go to the basin, but the engineer is here in the audience, so I'll probably let the expert kind of answer the question on that.
Okay. Because the point is, we've got, 50, 60, 70 feet of underground storm drain line going to the most easterly drainage line. And so can that be diverted onto Lot A into that drainage basin?
Commissioner, staff, my name is Rod Bradley with BHA, located at 5115 Avenida Encinas. I didn't catch your exact question. You were asking?
On the east portion of Ridge Road,
Yes.
we have an underground storm drain that takes it apparently from the catch basin from the gutter easterly in an easterly direction to the new drainage line at the bottom of that swale.
Yes.
On the road. Does the civil engineering or city ever have that drainage coming from the street drain into a private drainage basin, or does it always stay on public?
No, it does. It can go into private, and in this case, it goes into that private basin.
That is off property, though, correct?
Basin's on the property.
The basin's on the property, but are we diverting the water from the street gutter into that basin? Or is it being taken underground in that storm line to that most easterly drain line where we've got
Commissioner Looney?
existing culvert?
I'm sorry, are you referring to the water that's coming off of the private streets or the public street?
Public streets. So we've got the water that comes off the street here. Now, can that water be diverted into this basin? Or from this point, we have an underground line
It's not
back
supposed
to this drainage?
The water that's coming off of Ridge Road is not supposed to go into the detention basin because that's a private improvement.
That was the gist of my question.
Okay, sorry,
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I was trying to understand where you were coming from, which street.
Probably wasn't using the same or the proper terminology, so my apologies on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Garrettson, please.
Yes. Why did you not think to put sidewalks in? And I know there's no sidewalks either way, but to me, you have 31 families that are prisoner to the development, especially smaller kids. The closest recreation is Breeze Hill. There's really no place for those kids who are in that development to do anything except play in the backyard. And kids going to school, there's certainly, you wouldn't want a younger person to walk down that street. So I have major concern about not putting sidewalks in.
Commissioner, during the planning process, we started this process almost 3 years ago. We worked with staff starting with the pre-application process and taking input from every department. Are you speaking directly to sidewalk on Ridge Road?
Yes.
Okay. As it currently sits out there in Ridge Road right now, to my knowledge, there aren't any sidewalks. As it relates to our project frontage, we took input from staff, and given the rural nature of the area out there, specifically with Sunset Island, it was not brought up and asked for. And we all talked about it and really tried to keep the rural nature and the integrity of that with our site plan design.
Well, I saw two people walking and running up there, and there wasn't a lot of traffic, but you put 31 families and the cars that go with that, then you increase the amount of vehicles that go up and down Ridge Road, which increases the safety or decreases the safety of those people walking on Ridge Road.
Well, as it relates to the overall impact, traffic-wise, we have our traffic engineer here who can speak to that as well. But in the big picture of things, the actual impact from our trips generated from our subdivision in peak hours is, marginal. I realize, change from the existing condition today, it's certainly going to impact that. I'll agree with you there. Going back to your comment earlier as it relates to children being forced to, kind of play within the subdivision, these are large lots, and, the vision for the property, is taking advantage of those large lots with big backyards for, families to play in. So I don't know that I adequately addressed your question, but.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Carroll, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was asking initially about a paved sidewalk, but if, according to the typical section on sheet 1, there is a walkway. It's going to be a dirt or DG 6-foot walkway behind the curb. So they're improving the existing condition by adding a 6-foot parkway behind the curb, between the curb and the right-of-way. The landscaping that's proposed, I'm assuming, Ms. Chow, is going to be from the right-of-way on site and not in the public right-of-way, maintaining that 6-foot walkway.
I believe when looking at the landscape plan, that portion, the 6-foot the parkway itself, I believe it's going to be landscaped. So if the commission would like to keep that open as far as not landscaped, because I believe that there's actually ground cover material that's being proposed in there, and I'll confirm that in one sec. Let me just.
Yep.
Yeah, there are parkway ground covers or flats at 12 inches on center within that area. That would be the 6-foot parkway.
Okay,
But
so
again,
who would be
that's-
maintaining that landscaping in the right-of-way?
Who would be maintaining that? That would be part of the HOA. They would have to maintain that
In the right-of-way?
because the city does not maintain the ground cover or street trees for that matter.
Okay, so they would need some sort of, I'll just leave it at that. I think there's a 6-foot parkway there that's better condition than what's there now. But
Commissioner Carroll, if I may, you're correct in that there is a 6-foot area behind curb. What we have proposed there now is exactly what Patsy said. If it's the desire of the commission and the community to have some walkability as it relates to that area, we're happy to incorporate that into the design.
I think it would probably be better off overall, and it seems to be a little bit cleaner to have the separation of the right-of-way, in my personal opinion.
Commissioner Fleming.
Yes, along that same line there, Ms. Chow, does the school buses run through that area to pick up kids, or do the kids have to be either walk to school or parents take them? Do you know?
I believe that the school district probably does. I would imagine so, but I can't say. I haven't seen the school buses going through there the times that I was there, so I don't know for sure.
Well, my thought on that would be if you got 31 homes there, to have a little bus stop right there at the entrance to Street A, would be a very simple thing to just have them congregate there. They're not going to be walking up and down Ridge Road going to school. As all kids, they'll be walking up and down Ridge Road playing, but other than that, so that's what I had. Thank you.
Noted.
Commissioner Looney, please.
Coming back to the 6-foot right-of-way that's behind the curb, if you drive out Ridge, it's very rural, and I think I would prefer not to see a concrete sidewalk. I think if you make it a decomposed granite pathway, maybe go with that metal strip at the right-of-way and then begin your landscaping. I think it's going to maintain that rural setting that we really see that exists out there. The only other comment that I have on the application is I'd like to see your entry monument enhanced a little bit more. It seems somewhat downplayed. Not that you want it grand, but I'd like to see something maybe a little bit more artistic and more appropriate for that area. It just seems understated. So that was all. Thank you.
All right, noted. Unfortunately, the cross-section that we provide you is in black and white, and I'm holding an 11 by 17 here, but we'll certainly do our best to incorporate that in the final design if we're successful.
Commissioner Fleming, please.
I believe I just have one last question. When I was on the property a couple of days ago visiting with them, we sat under a giant tree right in the middle of the place. Is that tree going to stay, or is it going to have to go? Because it'd be a shame to take a tree of that age and lose it. I think if there's a way that you could work it into your layout there in some way would be something I would think, personally, I would love to see. So,
Commissioner Fleming, you're very observant. It's something that we observed early on as well, and unfortunately it lays right within our cut fill line. But what we did do is have a biologist look at that, and what we're doing is taking that same type of tree, and if you look at our landscaping plan and what's proposed, we're planting those around on the interior streets, that same species, and I believe it's 43, and those are 15-gallon. And as well as our project entry, if you flip to that page as well, we're showing an enhanced and a very large and mature oak tree there as well. So we're really trying to take that into consideration and try and improve the condition despite having to remove the tree because of development.
Commissioner Garrettson, please.
I would like to propose that this be amended to include some sort of a walkway all the way to Melrose. because I think there's some severe safety issues involved, because that's where the kids are going to go, to Melrose, and then to get down to the school over there. What would be your reaction to having a walkway, whether it be DG or concrete, all the way to Melrose?
Well, I guess my first concern, for lack of a better word, would be that it's property that we don't own or control. Does the right of way exist? Does that area exist for the improvement to be made? I'm certainly open to studying it further and to looking at that, but I defer to staff or to the city attorney if they're present to walk us through how that would be accomplished.
I think that would be a major plus for the neighborhood and for the safety of the people that live there now, plus the families of those who would move into this.
I'm certainly willing to look into that. I unfortunately don't have the information to accurately answer that for you. I don't know, Patsy, if you can comment at all.
I would probably echo what Blair mentioned about the possibilities as we move easterly towards Melrose, as far as the clearances, the proper distances, etc., safety issues. But that is not something that we looked at. And at this point, I don't know if I have enough information to tell you whether it's possible or not without consulting with the engineering staff.
Just to finish up, I will look into it and I'll report back to staff, who can report back to you if that's sufficient. Work with the title companies and such.
Okay, let's see. At this point, we'll open up the public hearing, and first we'll hear from Jeff Stemler, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Stemler, if you'll cite your name and provide your address for the
Jeff
record.
Stemler. My address is 1315 Ridge Road. I'm 22 feet away from that giant catch basin. When I look out my front door, I will now see a 45-foot high wall and a giant catch basin that all the water from that project is going to go into and sit there. It doesn't drain into the drain system. It sits there, and it will percolate or collect bugs or whatever it's going to do. But it's going to be maintained by the homeowners association, not by the city. There's no way that I can force the homeowners association to maintain it. I end up having to sue them if they don't. Literally out my front door, I am about 25 feet from that catch basin. Out my front door, off my patio, off my deck, I will now see a 45-foot high wall. All of the drainage from that property goes through Lot 17, goes down into that. The entire project has one drain. It's on Lot 17 at the top of that slope, coming down 40 feet into that catch basin. That's a lot of water. There's no way for that water to go into the existing culvert. The culvert that's there now is owned by the county, hasn't been maintained in 25 years. It's full of garbage and trash. It's going to back up onto Ridge Road, all that land, all that water. We have huge drain problems now. I don't think they've addressed how to get rid of the water if we have another El Nino or if we have any El Nino. That's a lot of land without any drainage on the upper part of the property. All the lots on the back, on the on the northwest side are all higher than the lots on the southeast side. So all of that entire property drains into one drain culvert and then down the street onto Ridge Road. Nobody seems to be really addressing the property or the traffic right now. Right now it's very rural. And you want to talk about maintaining a rural setting with a 45-foot high wall and slope, that kind of destroyed anything that even resembles a rural setting. That's gone. The sidewalk you're talking about is going to take 15 feet of the front of my property, so I'm not going to vote for it. This whole thing, it's going to change the whole outlook of Ridge Road. there's going to be a tremendous increase in traffic. There isn't 15 homes on all of Ridge Road, and now you're going to triple the number of homes there without any consideration for how to get out onto Ridge Road or how to get out on Melrose. Nobody's talking about traffic lights, traffic signals, stop signs, or anything else. It's to the point now that even pulling out of my driveway, which is on the southeast corner of that, traffic comes down that street at 50 miles an hour, and it gets to be pretty terrifying. Without sidewalks, there isn't any place for children to walk. There's nowhere for them to come out of that division and walk to Breeze Hill Elementary. There's no place to park a bus if there's going to be a bus stop. That's going to be a big issue. The views from the slope, obviously a big thing. The catch basin, who's going to maintain the catch basin and who's going to monitor that they're maintaining it correctly? The catch basin, basically, when I talked to Patsy, it's going to be 1 foot deeper than the outflow pipe that's in the far corner of that. So water can stand there and be a foot deep from all of that complex before it even starts to drain in any of the drain systems. And that's going to be standing water. All of that soil there is solid clay. It doesn't perk. Nobody can have a septic tank there because that soil will not drain. So that water is going to sit there for a long time unless they put in some sort of way to pump it out of there and get it into the drain system and down the street into that existing culvert. So the drainage is the biggest problem because I'm at the lowest point, my house at the very bottom of that entire complex. So I'm real concerned with that, and I don't think they've addressed how they're going to get rid of that water, particularly if they're only going to have the homeowners association maintain it. It's not going to be controlled by the city or maintained by the city. So that's my points on it. I'd like to get a little bit more input on how they're going to force that water out of that catch basin when we have significant rains. Because the houses directly across the street from that are 6 feet below the street. If that overflows, all of that property on that side of the street will be flooded, and they will be under a tremendous amount of rain and amount of water. And there doesn't seem to be any way of fixing it. Nobody's going to be out there pumping it on a big rainy night. So even now, it floods. That catch basin that's there now, when we have rain, it fills up in a matter of minutes. A half inch of rain, and we'll have 6 or 8 inches of water in that catch basin that's there now. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Andre Gomelin, please.
Hello. My name is Andre Gamelin. I live at 1218 Melrose Way in Vista. And I live right on the north side of where this proposed development is. And it's a little bit more complicated than I think was described. When we say they're just planning on just connecting to the sewer, in reality, there has to be a large amount of sewer work that has to be done in order to connect up to the sewer because of the elevation of the sewer line. So they're actually going to go down my road, and there'll be I think a 20 to 30 foot deep trench that will need to be dug down in that area. And that road is my only access to my house. So I'm very concerned about how I'm going to be able to get into my house while all this construction is being done. My neighbors have some of the same issues. One of my neighbors, they have a whole landscaped area that will have to be dug up there to get through to this sewer line. And so I think there's some serious issues with the sewer connection there. So that's probably my biggest concern, is what's going to happen with that. Then my other concern is with the zoning. So right now, what wasn't really mentioned is that the zoning of the area of the city of Vista in that area is two houses per acre. And so we have this proposed development that is going to come in under a zoning of 5 houses per acre. And so it seems like the reason for this incorporation is to get access to the sewer. And if the reason is to get access to the sewer and to come into the city, then why isn't this being done under the same zoning that we already have on our lots? So if our zoning is 2 per acre, then I think this proposal should be changed so that the zoning can fall under the two houses per acre zoning that we already follow.
Ms. Chow, isn't the proposal for this project is going from what is currently allowed is five dwellings per acre to 2.5 dwellings per acre? Is that correct? 2.7?
It is correct that the general plan currently designates the project site at 5 dwelling units per acre. And they are proposing a project at 2.7 dwelling units per acre, so it's within the allowed designation.
Okay, so it's just the opposite.
No, the five is the zoning that they have right now is not for the city. That's for what their incorporation is in the rural area. But they can't build to that zoning in the rural area because they don't have access to the sewer. So every house that's in the city of Vista is zoned for 2 per acre, not 5 per acre. So is everything on Ridge, is the plan that everything on Ridge is going to come into the city one day under 5 per acre? And suddenly you're going to have a high density area on Ridge, and all of the other houses that are not a part of Ridge are going to be under 2 per acre? Do we have the ability to rezone our houses, our areas, so that we can start building more and more houses on our properties? I just don't understand this plan. This is the opportunity right now. They're trying to come into the city. They want to get into the city. You can say, okay, you need to follow the rules of the other houses that are in the city. It makes sense.
Good comment.
So does everybody understand what the issues are with the sewer? That the sewer has to be dug up, and it's not just a simple matter of connecting to the sewer that's already there. We actually have a lot of work to go through there and access into this area that really wasn't intended on ever servicing the backside of Ridge. So you're going to see this happen, and it'll connect up for this one proposed development, but it's not going to help anybody else and anywhere else up on Ridge because they won't be able to get a connection into there. Mm-hmm. So it just seems like there's a few things that are flawed in this plan that need to be changed before they should move forward.
Thank you for your comments. And let's see, I have speaker slips from Chip and Orville who do not wish to speak but are in favor, so thank you for that. And I believe yes, I have no other speaker slips for this item. Anybody else wish to render an opinion or a thought? If so, please fill out a speaker slip. If not, commissioners, Commissioner Fleming.
I spent quite a bit of time up on that hill looking around, looking at the different angles, and I believe there's going to be some beautiful views that the people are going to have, especially from their second floor, if that's what these turn out to be, 2-floor. As far as the number per lot, R2 or R1 allows for 5 per acre, and they're only putting 2.7. So they're actually going to be way below what they could do technically. And as far as the runoff is concerned, there's been a lot of talk about that. And one thing that I believe and what I've seen, right now there's not much there, so you're going to get a lot of runoff, period. When this goes in, there is a lot of landscaping that's going in around the sides that's going to break that runoff to some large extent, in my opinion. Is answering your sewer question, or at least what I know, what I can answer about it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here. If the city digs it up and makes a mess out of it, they've got to make it back whole. They can't leave you less than you were when they started, if I'm not mistaken.
That actually will be a responsibility of the developer when they do the sewer work out there, but that is correct. They have to do the work within the sewer easement that's allowed to them, the 10-foot off-site, the 20-foot that's on-site, and whatever it's there, they obviously have to put it back after they finish the work and providing the extension of the lateral.
So in general, I spoke to a couple of people in the area. I didn't speak to you the day I was out there. I stopped and didn't see anybody, and I couldn't climb the stairs to get up to your door, so I didn't do that. But there was concern about the traffic, and I do understand that. My only traffic concern that I particularly had was Ridge Road going into Melrose. That is, right now, it's almost impossible to make a left under the conditions they are. So I don't know if the city is planning on making some sort of adjustments or something there. So in general, I am for this. I think it's basically, it fits into what I think would be good for the city. So that's my comments, and thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Rossler, please.
Perhaps we can have the applicant's engineer come up and explain the detention basin or the bio-retention basin and how that's supposed to function. Could you do that for us?
Commissioners, staff, Rod Bradley with BHA. Yeah, this project, if it was built a number of years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago, we wouldn't have a basin at all. State is mandating that we start treating the water that's coming off our sites before it enters our lagoons and our streams. So this basin is sized appropriately for the soil type. It is clay. It's recognized. That's why it's so large. The other is that it'll have engineered soil at the base, and what the state's mandating now, and there's new rules that are being changed, and we'll see them next year. And then from then on, there'll constantly be changes. But the idea is to not let water go off site. You're supposed to perk it on site, and you have to create that condition. That's what this is going to be. If for some reason it does get clogged up with trash or debris, there is an overspill to get it out into the street and then down into the drainage channel. With respect to the maintenance, one of the reasons why the basin is situated where it is, we want it close to Ridge. We want to be able to access it. We want city employees to be able to drive by it, look in it, see what's happening there. The biggest thing about the maintenance is actually just trash and debris, as stated about the culvert that nobody's maintaining. We'll be working on that culvert, so if there is certain discrepancies in that culvert, those will be repaired and fixed, and if it's just debris, then it'll be cleaned out. But really, that's in a nutshell. All your subdivisions, all your projects from now on are all going to be filtered. There's not going to be any runoff. If it is, it's clean, but it's no more than what's on the site. They want it to perk on site.
So the area surrounding the bio-retention basin, is it a wall? Is it natural soils with landscape materials on it?
Well, I'm confused about the wall. There's no wall proposed. I think maybe he's just talking about the slope is so large it appears to be a wall. So it's going to be landscaped. It's all going to be treated. Like I said, everything that comes off this site will be treated before it enters public right-of-way or that drainage channel.
Okay.
And really, as Commissioner Fleming said, he'll actually be better off because right now with the clay and the water, even though it's not houses and you have all this impervious surface, the house itself, it just sheets off this. And the natural condition, you were out there, there is a little basin down there right now that the owner installed when he first started to use this as a nursery.
Okay.
So according to the to the landscaping plan, then the basin, the bottom of the basin will be landscaped with a ground cover, and then the basin is surrounded by California sycamores on the south and east side, and then the slope going up to the west, the northwest has coast live oaks, sumac, and other oaks, and toyon. So that whole slope will be landscaped with ground cover, shrubs, and trees.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's. I think we did it a little extra heavy during the process. We beefed that up as well.
Mm-hmm.
The landscaping.
Okay.
Don't go away, just in case. Commissioner Carroll.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm satisfied that this project is actually making drainage improvements to the area. There's 2 locations where it's taking drainage off the street, off the new private streets, and dumping it into the bioretention basin. From there, it's going into a new public storm drain system down the street. The curb and gutter, I think, along Ridge Road is necessary in conjunction with those drainage improvements to get that water that's in the public right-of-way down past the subdivision down into the creek. And I don't have a problem with the density. I'm in favor of the project, and pending any further discussion, I'm going to make a motion to approve it as written. So, I'm going to put the motion out there for these 3 items as written: the annexation, the mitigated negative deck, and the tentative subdivision map. Yes.
Commissioner Garrettson?
I don't know if we need a second on this before we discuss it or not, or potentially amend it. We need a second first?
No, go ahead.
Well, I will absolutely oppose this unless there's something done about, the first thing would be sidewalks and safety along Ridge Road all the way to Melrose. Secondly, unless or until I feel good about the catch basin and not creating a problem with insects or whatever for the neighbors with standing water. And 3 is the sewer line, the road access plan for the neighbors, that the neighbors know that if there is a sewer line that goes up their street, they're still going to have access to their property. So those are the 3 things that I would either suggest we amend to make sure that those are being done, or if not, I will oppose the project totally.
So you're asking me if I will amend that motion? No, I'm gonna stick with the way I proposed it.
Commissioner Carroll, would you consider amending the motion to include that 6 feet walkway in front that looked like it was DG but was planted upon, to at least keep that as a 6-foot walkway in front of the project?
As a DG walkway to eliminate the landscaping? Sure. I think what's going to happen if it was to landscape with ground cover is that if it got to be used as a walkway on a regular basis, the trail's just going to appear there on its own, and the vegetation, that ground cover would get killed. So I don't think that's a big deal either way, but I would amend that motion to reflect that.
Commissioner Rossler?
I know this seems like it's somewhat complicated, but in the reality of the situation, this is pretty straightforward. The property is planned medium-low density, 5 dwelling units per acre. They're proposing an R1 zone change. 10,000 square foot lots are minimum. We've got all complex regulations that have come into effect concerning drainage. They've got access to the sewer. They've got existing documents that show on the tentative map that they have sewer access and rights to the sewer line going up to the north to Melrose. I'm going to second the motion because I think it's relatively straightforward. although it's somewhat complicated tonight. So there's your second.
Commissioner Fleming?
Yeah, thank you. I will also be in favor of this. The comment I had as far as Commissioner Garrison was concerned, as far as the sidewalk or the walkway all the way to Melrose, as the petitioner said, there is a possible major problem there because you got to deal with each individual homeowner. You got to deal with their right of way. What is the right of way? I think you're talking about a major situation in that case. I don't see how that could be done. As far as the sewer, I would imagine, and I don't know this for a fact, they're not going to be able to block the people off so they can't get to their homes. They will be provided a way in and out of their homes. That's not something that this would cover anyway. So anyway, I am in favor of this. Thank you, Chairman.
Commissioner Jackal, please.
Thank you. I was going to second it also. I am very pleased at the density, which I think is suitable for this area, and I agree with the walkway in front, so I'm in favor.
Thank you. Commissioner Garrettson, please.
I like the project a lot, but it seems to me that we can do something for safety in that neighborhood as we're doing it. And, you know, if nothing else, have a contingency that they at least look at it, come back and propose something that maybe is acceptable to the neighbors. I just think we do a disservice when we approve a housing complex like this with 30 families and no way to get to recreation, to schools that is safe.
Chairman, if I could interject real quickly. There is a right-of-way that runs all the way to Melrose that's probably not fully covered by the street. So if the commission is interested in an off-site path, it would just be subject to the availability of public right-of-way to put it in. So we'll look at that before we go to the city council, and we'll report back on whether or not that's available.
That would be wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Connolly. Okay, we have a first, an amended first, and a second. So I think we're ready to vote. Please cast your vote. Please let the record state that all three items, correct, were voted upon and agreed upon with the exception of Commissioner Garrettson. Thank you. Okay. If there's any students here from Vista High or Rancho that you need your papers signed, now would be a good time to bring them up to us. We'll take a 5-minute recess to do that. I thought of that right after.
Yeah, I have a whole stack of this in my yard too.
Just had all mine cut away.
Put it on eBay, right?
No, sell it to them. Yeah.
I actually have made some fun projects out of Bible fence boards. I made like some shadow box shelves and a few other nets.
Yeah. Make it tell the truth. Mr. Winters, can you lead us through P15-0607, BAMA Assets LLC, Sam Molino?
I believe this is on. Thank you, Chairman Kramer and Commissioners. Project file number 15-0607. This is a special use permit application for Starbucks drive-through. The applicant is present tonight, Sam Molino with BAMA Assets LLC. The project scope, this is a request for a special use permit, SUP, and site development plan to construct a 900 square foot drive-through coffee shop at 991 Civic Center Drive. The scope of the project would include drive-through service proposed to operate 24 hours a day. It includes a walk-up window proposed to operate 4 a.m. to midnight, and there would be no interior customer service or dining area, so it would be exclusively customer sales through the drive-through and walk-up window. The scope of the project does include a 550 square foot patio area adjacent to the building. The project site is an undeveloped parcel, approximately 1/2 acre in size at 20,508 square feet. The site is vacant with the exception of several palm trees and other vegetation. As shown in the images, the site is a generally flat portion towards the southwest, but otherwise slopes down towards the intersection of Civic Center Drive and Phillips Street. The location of the property is approximately 150 feet north of the entrance and exit ramps of on the north side of State Route 78. The property is bounded by public right-of-way on all sides, as shown in the aerial image, having Lotto de Loma to the west, Phillips Street to the north, and Civic Center Drive to the east. There are single-family residences to the west and to the east, the Sprinter Station to the northeast, and also a mixture of residential, commercial, and office uses to the north. The zoning for the property is C1, which allows for restaurants and other commercial uses. Being that there's a drive-through proposed as part of this project, it does require consideration of a special use permit. The zoning is consistent with the general plan designation of CN, which is commercial neighborhood. This general plan designation supports the uses convenient, supports business uses that are convenient to nearby residents and businesses. Looking at the site plan, just to go over some of the features, the building is 900 square feet, which is approximately less than 5% of the project site, relatively small building for the size of the property. The project does require 10 parking spaces to be provided on site, in addition to 8 queuing spaces or stacking spaces that are available in the drive-through. There's one entrance to the project site, which is on the north side of the property from Phillips Street. Cars would proceed through the entrance and generally have the option of parking, going to the walk-up windows. Most trips would be to use the drive-through aisle, which would be straight across from the entrance, loops around counterclockwise around the building, and the drive-through window is located at the bottom of the diagram, which is the east side of the property. The site also includes a detention basin, which will be a little more visible when I get to the landscaping plan. The patio area would be screened with a combination of reclaimed wood screens and green screens, which would support vine growth. The screens are shown to the north of the building, a little small to see on the slide, but I can point to those in this area. So there's various screens there that help shield the patio area from the drive-through aisle, and there's also an additional 10 to 20 feet of landscaping. It varies through that area, so the patio does have separation from the drive-through aisle. Drive-through traffic is anticipated to make up 75% of the sales, with about 25% being walk-up customers. Some of the other improvements on the property would include screening walls as shown. There's a 6-foot screening wall that would be along Lotto de Loma Drive, screening and shielding the drive-through aisle from residences towards the west and towards the southwest. There's also a 42-inch screen wall as shown that would be along the drive aisle, somewhat along Civic Center Drive to the east side of the parcel. That would wrap around the parking spaces that are towards the front of the building on the north. There's also a 1 to 5 foot retaining wall along Civic Center Drive. Most of that wall would be on average 2 to 3 feet. The highest point would be somewhere in the middle at no higher than 5 feet. There's a detention basin, a bioretention basin located at the northeast corner of the property that potentially will have a 2 to 4 foot retaining wall if needed. That's pending final analysis of the hydro calculations for this property, so there's a chance that that wall will not be required as shown. There's also a small retaining wall along the west side of the property where the new sidewalk runs into a disabled access ramp that leads onto the project site. As shown, there's new sidewalk areas along Phillips Street that connect to the corner of Civic Center Drive on the east and wrap around the corner to Lotto de Loma on the west. These are site sections for the property that show the building and elevation relative to some of the surrounding structures. Site section A shows to the left, which is the top image, a residence located to the southwest of the building. It shows the drive aisle adjacent to the building in the center of the image. There's approximately, just to give some distances, from the separation of the commercial business with the residences in the area. On the top image, the residence to the left is over 100 feet away from the site. Basically, the open area that you see in front of the residence would be the cul-de-sac at the end of Lotto de Loma Drive. In the bottom image, this would be a site section that captures a residence to the west of the project site. It's at a higher elevation. The distance separation there is approximately 115 feet from the building, where the Starbucks building, which would be in the middle of the rendering there. As far as the elevations, the building's architecture, it would feature a variety of materials, including metal canopies, reclaimed wood siding, and smooth stucco sections. There's also a mesh screen for rooftop equipment, wall sconce lighting, and trellises will be included. A sample is brought to the Commission tonight, which would support vine growth. Next slide. See, as far as landscaping on the site, it would cover 9,551 square feet, which is approximately 47% of the site. The minimum required under the C1 zoning is 15% of the project site. There would also be 800 square feet approximately of permeable pavers, which are located under the parking stalls to the north side of the project site. The proposed use is consistent with the commercial neighborhood designation for the property. The zoning meets the setback, parking, and landscaping requirements for the C1 zone. A special use permit is required to establish a drive-through business. The project is exempt from CEQA as an infill development project. Staff's recommendation is to adopt a resolution granting the special use permit inclusive of the site development plan to construct a 900 square foot coffee facility and associated improvements at 991 Civic Center Drive, subject to the conditions of approval. Staff has provided conditions to the commission, which include standard landscape conditions that were not included with the original draft conditions. So those will be included with part of the project. That concludes staff presentation. I'm available to answer any questions. We also have the applicant and the architect, and I believe the engineer with us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Winters. Could you go back to, I believe it was your slide 2, the one that showed the different walls? That one. The 6-foot screen wall around the drive-through that's to the left, far left of the diagram there. What is that screen wall going to be constructed out of? Is it similar to the Eco wall? Is it?
That would be a block screening wall with stucco finish.
Okay. And the 1 to 5 foot retaining wall, let's see, what would be the bottom section? Is that going to be the same thing?
Also a block wall to match the other walls on site, stucco finished.
So that wall there will help keep the lights on, the headlights from the cars that are in queue to pick up their beverages and food items at the drive-through. Is that correct? It'll serve as a...
The wall that is immediately adjacent to the drive-through, looks like the drive-through is at the bottom of the image, but that's the east side of the property, and that wraps around the parking spaces. That's a 42-inch screen wall intended to block headlights from shining towards Civic Center Drive and towards the residences to the north of the property site.
So what's the reason for the additional 1 to 5 foot retaining wall? Again,
strictly for retaining purposes due to the grading necessary for this project site.
Okay, understand. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Winter. Commissioner Carroll, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Winter, the 10 parking spaces on site, that's based on a square footage calculation for this type of use, right? Is that correct?
That's correct, Commissioner.
And it includes, so that calculation includes staff. It's all-encompassing of staff and customers.
That's correct. The calculation is based on the building square footage, and it also includes a requirement for the patio area seating. So based on
a
the
certain
square
amount of patio triggers a certain number of additional stalls.
Right. It would be calculated the same as would an indoor restaurant for that seating area.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Rossler, please.
Chris, you said that they anticipate 25% walk-up. Can we assume that the majority of those folks are going to be coming from the Sprinter station?
I do not have that information.
Okay. All right. Tell me, I couldn't find it on the plans. Tell me how wide the driveway in and out of the site is at the property line on Phillips Street. I'm sorry, if it's there, I couldn't find it. But.
That would be a city standard driveway. I don't know the dimension off the top of my head. I'm not sure if the director might, but I can have a few seconds. I can figure that out for you.
Okay. Here's my concern, and I'll mention it so the applicant can think about it. If 25% of their sales are going to come from walk-up traffic, and they're across the street from the Sprinter station, I can see people going to the Sprinter station, walking across the street to get a coffee before their train comes. I would like to see, following up on a theme that we've already established here tonight, I'd like to see a walkway from Phillips Street up into the site that connects them to the takeout or the ordering window. So that's my concern, and I thought that the driveway looked wide enough that they could take 4 or 5 feet and put a a sidewalk on the south side of it and provide that access. So that's my concern.
Thank you, Commissioner. The sidewalk access would actually be from the corner of Phillip Street and Civic Center Drive. The path of travel would be for pedestrians to cross the driveway aisle, go to Lada de Loma, where there's a designated sidewalk path and ramp that would lead to the interior of the project site. From there, there's a path of travel to the walk-up windows.
Yeah, people are lazy. They're not going to do that. So I think a sidewalk going up the side of the driveway would be more beneficial. So anyway, just my thought right now.
Commissioner Garrettson, please.
I totally agree with that. Nobody's going to walk up and around. They're going to go into where the cars are going and go right to the walk-up window. So safety would be one of my concerns without a walkway or something there. My second point would be the houses that are above that, what are they going to see on the roof? Are they going to see a bunch of air conditioning and really bad view from up there? I mean, I know there's a screen up there, but is that going to screen those houses from seeing the top of the building?
There is a condition of approval for the project that requires all rooftop equipment to be entirely screened from visibility. So if there was any angle at which it was visible, the applicant is proposing a metal mesh screening to cover the sides of any rooftop equipment.
And there is no sidewalk proposed for Civic Center Drive because there's no place to go, basically.
That's exactly correct.
Okay, but there is a fence that's going to be around the entire property except where the entrances are, correct?
No perimeter fence is proposed. Any fence that would be proposed would be subject to being reviewed by the city planner. There would be improvements later done by the city at the corner of the project site near the cul-de-sac of Lado de Loma that may include wrought iron fencing leading into the project area. That would be a city project that has not yet been detailed out as far as a plan, but it would be made to tie in with the project site.
So anybody can have access 360 degrees into the property?
There's walls that would restrict access in some portions.
Those would be the retaining walls you're talking about?
These would be the
screen wall or
6-foot screening wall, primarily. Other than that, there's going to be landscaping and slopes that would not be very conducive to access to the property from other directions.
What about lighting in terms of the neighborhood and also sound, because this is a drive-through? So if you could address those two things.
Sure. The part of the project application included a photometric plan. Minimum lighting in the parking lot areas meets the city standards. What's helpful about this project site being surrounded by public right-of-way is that you won't have the overspill concerns with the lighting getting into the residential neighborhood across the street and so on. Yeah. The lighting, basically, it diminishes when you're crossing that kind of distances for the parking lot or building lighting. So it won't exceed the maximum required allowances across the street. Other than that, there's also code requirements that they cannot exceed the ambient lighting in the area. Being that Civic Center Drive is there, the freeway, there are street lights on the adjacent street. There won't be an issue with the lighting for the project. As far as noise, the project is located next to the SR 78 freeway and Civic Center Drive, as I mentioned, along with the Sprinter Rail to the north. And basically, these are the three primary noise producers for the entire city, SR 78 being number one. This project is right in the vicinity of all three. Ambient noise levels are 60 to 70 decibels in this area. Operation of the drive-through facility is not anticipated to exceed the ambient noise levels, and based on the existing noise associated with traffic on the freeway and Civic Center Drive, there shouldn't be any issues. Regardless of that, staff has included conditions of approval, and this is part of the reason for the screening walls that's there. But it requires a screen wall along the west side of the property to reduce potential noise impacts to the residences along Lado de Loma, as well as directional and sound requirements for the menu board to minimize any nuisance noise. Additionally, the conditions of approval provide the ability to require a technical noise analysis at the time of construction if the proposed facilities result in nuisance noise within the adjacent neighborhood. Staff anticipates testing of the equipment at the facility prior to occupancy to determine if there's any potential noise impacts to the adjacent land uses.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jackal, please.
Thank you. We'll take a kind of different tack. Last month, we had a very interesting, imaginative project proposed for a sort of odd lot, that Hillside Village. And here again, for a strange lot, we have, I think, a very nice project proposed. I'm delighted with the amount of landscaping that's going along with it. And I really like it.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Looney, please.
Thank you. Chris, you had brought up the answer to my question. That was that sound wall protecting that border, the menu board with the speaker, because I was concerned about that speaker volume going across to the residential area. And then a comment to the applicant and the architect. It was refreshing to see a really good set of drawings submitted that clearly presented the project with site sections and details, and it was refreshing to see a complete set of drawings. So I commend you on that.
Thank you. Commissioner Fleming, please.
Thank you. Getting back to the discussion a little bit about the sidewalks and the safety, one of the things I would like to, that I think might be real workable, and what I would like to see is that corner access on Phillips and Civic Center. There's an entrance to the sidewalk right there, and it's almost the end of the sidewalk. If you extended that sidewalk to the left on the picture we're looking at, a few feet, and then went up between the two retaining walls, you might be able to put an entrance there that would be decorative in some way, so that you didn't have to walk all around. You wouldn't have to cut into the driveway. They wouldn't have to walk beside the driveway. But that would be something that would just be like a more direct shot. I'd like to see something like that myself. That's what I would recommend. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fleming. Sam Molino, please, the applicant.
Hello. Good evening, commissioners and staff. My name is Sam Molino. My address is P.O. Box 171, Carlsbad, California, 92018. We're here tonight to propose construction of a 900 square foot Starbucks drive-through with walk-up window and no indoor seating, outdoor seating only. If there's any technical questions relevant to the project, I have my architect here and my civil engineer, which will be happy to answer all your questions.
Thank you, sir. I have one question, and it's relative to the covered trash. It's so close to the area where the cars are being stacked up that I was wondering if it's feasible for the trash truck to get in there and take the trash away without impeding the stack up of the cars.
I did speak with Edco, I think, who handles the trash, and did send them a site plan, and they had no problem dealing with the trash removal at this site.
Okay, that's my question. Commissioners? And Commissioner Garrettson, please.
That raises the question. You got the trash container there right next to handicap parking, and you have the cars there. I would think that would be a major problem for Edco to come in there and get trash and keep it safe for the people who are parking that are handicapped. I don't know what their collection time is, but
Their collection times do vary. I'm going to ask that that question be posed to my engineer or my architect, who would be more in tune to answer that question.
And my second question would be to address Commissioner Fleming's comment about that sidewalk being extended around a little bit onto Civic Center so people could walk onto the property without having to fight the traffic or go all the way around. What would be your comment on that?
Again, I would have to relent to my professionals to answer those questions for you, if that's okay.
That's perfectly. I'd like to hear from them.
All right.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Dan Martirana, MK Architects. A couple things. So let's go back to the mechanical screens. We did the site sections to show we paid attention to the residences to all around us. And the mechanical screens are on that tallest part of the building, and they're completely shielded on all sides. We made sure we did our site sections that no matter where you're at in the residences, we'll never look into the mechanical units. Trash. The trash enclosure, how we do a number of these little centers, especially around Kearney Mesa. And what Edco does, they always come with two people. They'll put the cones out. They're out of there in 60 seconds. They pull the bins out. One guy, after they cone it off, the one guy will just flag the other truck in, and 60, 90 seconds they're out of there. So I don't think the trash will be an issue regarding parked cars there, because they almost always do it with two individuals for those trash pickups. The sidewalk, we're not opposed to the sidewalk. We may want to look at a different location, though. I normally don't like having the sidewalks right next to driveways, unless we can get a good landscape buffer there, because the driveway is a little bit steep going down into it, so that'd be my concern with steep driveways and pedestrians right next to it. But we're not opposed to it, so we can look, if maybe we can make that a condition, we can look at a possible second, more user-friendly entrance from the sidewalk off the corner of Phillips there.
What about the handicap right next to the dumpster?
The dumpster's not going to be, again, picked up all that much, and normally what we'll try and do with Edco is have them pick it real early in the morning or not during prime time.
Wouldn't it be easier to change where the handicap parking is?
The site,
maybe go to number 2 instead of number 1?
Given the constraints of the site as far as our 2% and 1% for the flatness of it, that was the best location for it. And we did want to combine it for our accessible path of travel from the public way into the walk-up window. So it's kind of combined.
Commissioner Fleming, please.
Yes. So you are going to go back and consider the sidewalk there on Phillips?
Yes, we have no problem considering
that. Might be a pretty good incline, so I don't know if it's.
But it's not our accessible one, so it's a little more permissible to have a slightly steeper sidewalk.
That said, unless do we have speakers? Okay.
And we do have just as
that's all I got.
Chris mentioned, we have the landscape architect here, traffic, and our civil.
Commissioner Looney, please.
Just one question on the ADA parking space. We've got a very limited backup space, especially for the ADA. If I measure from that curb that's right at that edge of the ADA space of number 1, if I go from that curb to the other edge of the sidewalk, I've got about 19 feet for that accessible van to back up. So it might become a little tight, so I'd like for you to maybe to look into that, because otherwise that ADA vehicle is going to have to back up, providing there's no space, there's no vehicle there, and then come up, and they're going to almost clip space number 2 in order to make that turn to come back out. The accessible vans don't have that great of a turning radius, and I just think that might be a tight area for someone that's going to pull in there in a van. Any other vehicle, I think it won't be a problem.
Right, I understand.
But you've got it scales about 18, 19 feet there that it might be a little squeaky tight. So that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Looney. Thank you, sir. Kim Miller, please. Ms. Miller, just state your name and give your address, please.
Kim Miller, 233 Lion Circle, Vista, California. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kim Miller. My husband and I have been residents of Vista for over 14 years. We are pleased with the progress of our community and definitely support further community development if planned correctly. However, we are deeply concerned about your plans to develop a 24-hour Starbucks in our neighborhood. The concerns lie within the traffic impact. Currently, we travel to and from our home located on Lion Circle, 2.5 blocks from the proposed development to Civic Center Drive. It is my understanding, and according to your site plan and staff report, the location of the ingress and egress for Starbucks is proposed on Phillip Street, which is already heavily traveled. During peak hours on Phillip Street, the traffic will typically stack up to 8 to 10 cars, merging right or left at the signal traveling onto Civic Center Drive. My questions to you are, you refer to your TIA, Traffic Impact Assessment, in your staff report, but I am suspect to the study and how it does not refer to a trip generator. What is the volume of traffic during the peak hours in the AM and PM going into and out of the proposed Starbucks project? Number 2, has the TIA been prepared for this project accordingly to show how it will affect the residents in the neighborhood, traffic on Civic Center Drive, Highway 78, and the customers of Starbucks? Number 3, may I have a copy of the complete TIA according to the public records request? And my 4th question is, do you live in our neighborhood or commute on Civic Center Drive? If so, then you're already familiar with the signal timing, peak traffic times, commuter impact from Highway 78, Civic Center Drive, and not to mention the Sprinter crossing. I strongly feel that this will not only create a substantial traffic impact for the residents, but also a future hazard to commuters traveling this area. I am asking that you not approve this project until further studies have been made and you take the time to further research the traffic effects and consider the safety and well-being of your residents. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Miller. Tanya Rindo. And Ryan, do you wish to speak too? If so, we need you to fill out a speaker slip.
My name is Tanya Riando, and I live at 699 Lotto de Loma. Oh, sorry. Tanya Riando, and I live at 699 Lotto de Loma. I believe that our house is the house that was shown on one of the screens being right across the cul-de-sac. Thank you for the opportunity to voice my concerns tonight. I live in the house that is directly across the cul-de-sac from this project, so I do have a great interest in what happens to the space. When I first saw the permit come up for the Starbucks, we contacted the city to find out where the vehicles would be coming into the Starbucks, and we were happy to find out that it was on Phillips. The only issue that I have with that is I know that there is a new Starbucks that opened on Emerald and West, and as the previous speaker said, it does get backed up from cars that are trying to turn in and then turn into the Starbucks. At the time when we spoke to somebody at the city, we were told that we'd been mailed a notice about the public hearing, and we were not made aware of it. The only reason I found out about it was because the notice was posted on the fence at the property. I want it to be known that I was never made aware, and I think that we were supposed to get that. The issues we have now that we know that cars will not be traveling on Lotto de Loma is the amount of extra noise that this will create. The main noise complaint stems from the use of it being a drive-through speaker, which always is loud and the sound seems to travel. All of our windows face the street, including both of our bedroom windows, mine and my 9-year-old son's, and we can hear people talking in the cul-de-sac now as it is, let alone there being a speaker there that lets that go out. I'm not sure if a 6-foot screen wall is going to help that or not. And also, that wall, if it could come around, possibly would help even more. And also, my son and I play outside in the cul-de-sac, and I can see our balls getting tossed into the drive-through area, which I would see as a safety concern. And the final thing that I am in complete disagreement on is the restaurant being 24 hours. I just don't see this area as needing a 24-hour Starbucks. After 11 o'clock or so, there is very little traffic on Civic Center and on the freeway as well as it gets later. Even the Sprinter stops at a certain time in the evening and doesn't go until all night long. So I know that there seems like there would be better areas where there's a gas station close by or maybe near the hospital that a 24-hour Starbucks would thrive a little bit better. Let's see. I just feel it would bring unwanted activity to the area in a residential area. So I'm not completely against the Starbucks. I do think it would make the area look nicer, and the landscaping and the building does look very nice. I just have those concerns. So thank you for your time.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
You made the comment about the wall coming around. Are you talking
Yes.
about referring to the stack up of the cars so that it goes completely around?
Well, if you see where the blue screen wall is, yes, right where it ends, the cul-de-sac goes all the way around like this. So if that wall was to come around, because my son and I play right there, and I can just see the balls going right down into the thing. I'm not sure exactly how the grading is going to be on this site either. Is it going to go down or is it going to come up? Because of the way that the land is shaped, it's shaped kind of like this, and it goes down into the bottom. So,
Good comment. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Commissioners, if not, I'd like to ask Dan to come back and address the question about, is it possible to complete that wall to actually protect the residents there on Lotto de Loma?
Absolutely. I mean, the wall was extended. We worked with the city a couple times on the wall, and it extended a little more each time. So obviously, we want to be a good neighbor, and the wall can certainly extend around that cul-de-sac. I've been in the cul-de-sac a number of times.
Okay, well, something to consider. Thank you. Commissioner Rosler?
It appears from the grading plan that the drive-through lane at that location where the 6-foot wall is somewhere around 5 feet below the bottom of the wall. Is that?
It's a little more than that.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look at our site section, that's how I specifically did one through there to show. So it's going to, have a look at the civil plan, but it drops, it's about 5.5 feet.
Okay.
Because then with the 6-foot wall, we knew we were going to have about 11-foot
Okay.
sound protection, hopefully to the neighbors.
Okay. All right. Okay. Very good. Thank
Commissioner Fleming, did you have a question or a comment to make?
Yes, I did.
Okay, please.
Absolutely.
While you're there, a couple of things. She had mentioned the 24-hour. Would it be possible to have it less than 24 hours? And if you did, would that restrict your sales that much, or where are you on that?
Well, speaking on behalf of Starbucks, obviously we'd love to have the 24-hour. Now, if that's going to be a deal breaker, then our second request would be, as we're doing with the walk-up window, would be 4 a.m. to 12.
Okay. Well, for her benefit, I wanted to ask that question.
Yeah.
But I think with that separation you're talking about with the house and then the Lado de Lomas, that's a little bit below that. And then you got the retainer wall, and then you got it's going to be quite a bit of separation there. So hopefully that'll take care of that.
That's what we kind of work with staff on. Right?
My last question I had is, there is a lot of palm trees on that. What are your plans for those?
All your addresses, and we were going to drop off 2 per.
I would like to make sure that those don't get just.
We're going to see if they can
used.
be with a tree broker and see if we can.
Okay. So that's
absolutely. They've been there a long time. So
if anybody else does, I can make a motion right now.
Let's see, Commissioner
Chairman.
Garrettson, or
Did y'all want to discuss it some more?
Just one thing. With this project, will that stupid sign that's been leaning against the fence forever be gone? Okay.
Chairman, a couple things I want to add if I could.
please.
Mr. Winters mentioned that there was going to be a city project to improve fencing around the site, so we will run a fence from the wall at 78 at the on-ramp around the end of the cul-de-sac and connect to their screen wall, so it will be, Lado de Loma will be completely fenced off once the city's project is improved. And the second thing is Ms. Miller brought up some traffic concerns. I know the applicant has his traffic consultant here tonight. He could probably respond to some of those questions.
Perfect, that'd be wonderful. Could you come up, sir? And state your name, give your address, because I don't have a speaker slip.
Sure. My name is John Borman. I'm with Lynn Scott Law and Greenspan, local traffic engineering firm. Offices at 4542 Ruffner Street in San Diego. I was taking notes as the lady was asking the traffic questions. As far as trip generation, so we did do a full traffic study reviewed by your city traffic engineer. We made some revisions and it was approved by the city. Within our traffic study, there is a trip generation forecast. We've done actual counts at other Starbucks to determine how much traffic Starbucks generates. It's predicted to be about 800 trips a day. That's 400 in, 400 out throughout the entire day. I think an important thing to remember with projects like Starbucks is that close to half of those are already on the street anyway. These aren't people at home going to Starbucks, going back home again. They're on Civic Center. They're on 78 already. But that's that. The level of service at Phillips and Civic Center is level of service B as in boy. That's an acceptable level of service. Civic Center is very busy. There's no doubt about that. But the amount of traffic on Phillips is such that it's an adequate level of service. And again, a lot of that traffic that will come to Starbucks is already on Civic Center anyway. And I think that answers the questions that came up. I'm sorry? Peak hour trips, yes, sure. So the amount of peak hour trips in the morning, it's about 60 in, 60 out. And in the afternoon, that's during the peak hour, like 7 to 8 in the morning. In the afternoon, peak hour 5 to 6, it's about 20 in, 20 out. And again, about 40 to 50% of those are already on the street anyway. So,
Could we make sure that she gets a copy? She had asked for a copy of that. Could make sure.
I'll help make that happen, yes.
Good. Thank you. Commissioner Carroll, please.
Thank you, sir. One more question regarding traffic. And that's just can you explain a little bit how the number of cars for stacking in the drive-thru is determined?
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure if the city has a standard on that. This is, for this size of project, this is what I'm used to seeing. I'm not sure if the city of Vista itself has a standard for the number of stalls or not off the top of my head.
We have an 18-foot stacking space requirement that's used to produce the calculation of how many vehicles will fit in the queuing lane.
And then, so there's not a minimum number of vehicles that you're required to accommodate in the stacking. You're just, what you got is what you got, or how did that come about?
The city requires 8 spaces
Oh,
for
okay.
a drive-through.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Roth, Commissioner Carroll, please, if you're not done.
I'm done with the traffic.
Okay.
I have other items.
Commissioner Rossler?
I had the same stacking question on traffic, so I'm good right now.
Commissioner Carroll, then.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers on the project? Okay, so we're into discussion.
Into discussion.
Very good. I also wanted to thank the architect, whether it was due to the architect or the staff, for providing the sections. I think those helped a great deal with helping the commissioners analyze how this project fits into the site and how it fits in with the neighbors. And I was also very pleased to see the access come off Phillips. And it's a tough site, and it's been vacant and an eyesore for a long time. And so I'm happy to see something going in here. And I would like to see that sound wall extended. It looks like about 30 feet around the cul-de-sac to either the angle point of the property line, or it looks like there's a electric pole guy wire there, so there may be a problem with extending that sound wall through the SDG&E easement. You may have to stop a little short of the angle point because of that existing easement, but I'd like to maximize that length. And I'm also not feeling the 24-hour opening for this business in this neighborhood. So I'd be inclined to support an 11 or 12 p.m. closing time for drive-through and walk-up.
Commissioner Fleming?
As far as the timing's concerned, what time does the Sprinter suspend at night? Do you know?
Tanya, you need to come.
I know there's a freight train.
I believe
that
the
goes
Sprinter
through.
stops around 11 p.m. There is a
Okay.
freight train that comes through in
So
the middle of the night.
if we made a condition, say 11:30 would be adequate, I think. Then we'd need to open it early, because there's some early people going to want their coffee going to San Diego or wherever. So like a 5 o'clock? 4?
They have a 4. I'm not proposing changing anything from the 4.
I would be inclined to make a motion that we approve this with the extension of the retainer wall, the 6-foot retainer wall, screening wall, as far as possible around that way, to make that just appearance, if nothing else. And then I'd like to change the hours to say 11, closing at 11 and opening at 4. And then based on adopt resolution 2015 next, granting a special use permit inclusive of a site development plan to construct a 900 square foot drive-through coffee facility at 991 Civic Center Drive. Thank you.
Commissioner Rossler?
Tom, would you include the sidewalk up alongside the driveway?
Yes, I would. Okay. I certainly would.
In that case, I'll second the motion.
Commissioner Carroll?
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I forgot to bring this up, but I'm a little bit concerned with the potential for graffiti on that 6-foot screen wall and on the 1 to 5 foot retaining wall along Civic Center Drive. So
we have a requirement to plant vines in front of those walls. It's about the only way we can deal with graffiti unless we do something besides a wall.
Yeah, the 1 to 5 foot, as opposed to just a CMU block wall with vines on it, I'm thinking perhaps a stackable, plantable wall, something along that has less surface face for tagging. Sure. I would be inclined to like to see that. I know the cul-de-sac off Lotto de Loma Drive is probably not going to get that kind of traffic. It's pretty private back there, but the Civic Center Drive I'm worried about. So would you be up to amending your motion to make that a plantable retaining wall along Civic Center Drive?
I think that would be fine. I would be agreeable to doing that. But as far as the screen wall back on Lotto de Loma, that's going to be a kind of a private area, and that's where you're going to catch a lot of taggers going back in there to draw their pictures too. So, but
well, they're not going to put it somewhere it's not going to get seen. But
that said, I would include that in my motion if the second would agree to it.
Commissioner Garrettson, please.
I was just going to comment on the sidewalk, but that's already been addressed.
Okay. Before we go any further, do the student commissioners, McKenna or Carla, any comments? No? Please come up. Love to hear from you.
Right, so I also agree with the plantable thing because there will be a lot of tagging. So it would make it just better for the drivers passing by to not see any tagging at all with a plantable fencing. That's my comment.
Thank you very much. It was good input. Sam, do you want to come back up and address anything that we may have brought up? Or Dan, or?
Any of you?
Yeah.
I believe that we are in agreement with your concerns and your requests.
Good. Thank you very much. Commissioner Garrettson?
Now, I was just going to wonder about the 4 to 11 versus you had suggested 4 to 12. I wonder if you'd comment on that.
Yes, Commissioner Garrettson, Starbucks, typically they open 4 a.m. to midnight, and what they do is they look at the count, from 11 to 12, and sometimes they reduce it to 11. Sometimes they even reduce it to 10, depending on the volume of business that they do.
So you think they'd be okay with the 11 o'clock?
Would you prefer 12 with the ability to make it less?
I would change my motion to 12 to 4.
4 to 12, yeah.
With that caveat that they would look at it and, if possible, move it back.
If they're not doing business between the hours of 10 and 12, they're not going to stay open.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Carroll, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Sorry, I'm kind of bringing more stuff up here at this point, but I just forgot that I had a question about, there's conditions in there about taking actual site measurements of the drive-through speaker after it's constructed, before occupancy. And what's the criteria where how is that criteria determined, whether it's too loud or at certain distances, certain decibels, or how does that work?
It would be measured as an average sound level at the property line. There's a maximum decibel level that you're not supposed to exceed beyond the property line. Given that it's a public right-of-way there, I'd have to ask the director if it would be measured at which side of the street, but typically, let's see if I have the figure here.
Well, I think you've already answered my question, because when it's calculated as an average, it's very rarely going to break that threshold, as we've seen on previous projects. So even though you may have...
One of the things we were looking at was nuisance noise here, so not necessarily an average, but a spike. So we're looking at, can the menu board speaker be heard on the other side of the wall? And that would be the standard that we'd be looking for nighttime operations.
Okay, so there is something concrete to be tested for at that time. Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, I think we've got everything. So we've got a motion, a second, some changes, lots of discussion. I think we can vote. Mr. Conley, close the public hearing and vote, please. Let the record show that the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right. We're ready for our third item this evening. Commissioners, do you need a little break before we go forward, or? Okay. Change of venue and... Yes. So, Ressler, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. The proposed amendment before you tonight to the Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance includes modifications to the definitions, applicability, as well as the regulation sections within the ordinance itself. The proposed code amendment has been designed to comply with Governor Brown's executive order in order to increase water efficiency standards for new and retrofitted landscapes. On April 1st, 2015, the governor signed an executive order which directed the State Department of Water to update the state's model ordinance, which would increase the efficiency standards for landscapes. On July 15, 2015, the California Water Commission actually approved that update. And as a result, local agencies are required to either adopt the state ordinance or adopt their own ordinance by December 1st, 2015. In the event a city is going to adopt their own ordinance, that ordinance would have to be at least as effective in terms of conserving water as the state's ordinance. In order to comply with the executive order, staff has recommended the following amendments to the water efficiency ordinance as well as the landscape manual. The amendment would refine the threshold for a project that's applicable to the ordinance itself. All new projects that include landscape areas equal to or greater than 500 square feet would be subject to the ordinance itself. That would include residential, commercial, as well as industrial projects. The ordinance amendment would also decrease the applicability threshold for existing residential landscapes that are being rehabilitated from 5,000 square feet to 2,500 square feet. And this amendment would also reduce the amount of water that can be used for landscape irrigations by adjusting the plant water use factor as well as the irrigation efficiency. The proposed amendment also includes detailed information in regards to soil preparation as well as sampling requirements. The amendment includes a requirement that a dedicated landscape water meter be installed for all non-residential landscapes over 1,000 square feet. And the amendment also includes a comprehensive reorganization of both documents, the landscape ordinance as well as the landscape manual, in order to eliminate any redundancy as well as creating user-friendly documents. The proposed update to the ordinance meets and exceeds the state model ordinance by making the plant factor as well as the irrigation efficiency more restrictive. It requires drip irrigation in all landscape areas, and it restricts the use of turf in areas designated for recreation purposes. The reason for this is of these strict standards is to be in lieu of the requirement for dedicated landscape water meters, master shutoff valves, flow sensors, as well as formal landscape irrigation audits for single-family residential projects. With that, staff is recommending the Planning Commission adopt the resolution recommending the City Council approve an ordinance amending Chapter 18.56 of the Vista Development Code regarding water-efficient landscaping. And that concludes staff's report. I am here to answer any questions as well.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Garrettson, please.
This ordinance will be for new construction or renovations. As a homeowner, it doesn't apply to me as long as I don't do anything major around the house. Or
unless you were doing any type of landscape rehabilitation more than 2,500 square feet and it requires a building permit.
But the average person, this would have no effect on.
You're absolutely correct.
Commissioner Carroll.
A typical scenario would be where a commercial building, new commercial or industrial building, their landscaping would require a separate water meter for their landscaping. The water district or the city, well, the water district would read that meter separately, and then what?
Actually, it wouldn't even be read separately. It's actually for monitoring purposes.
Yeah, that's my point. Who's going to be monitoring it?
That you're absolutely
Nobody.
correct.
Okay.
Nobody is. You're absolutely
Thank you.
correct.
Commissioner Fleming, please.
There's not a lot I can do about this one way or the other, but I just am opposed to a governor or a president or anybody just with a stroke of a pen or a telephone making adjustments to what we have to do. That's why we have state senators. That's why we have assembly people there to make these judgments. We don't need him to do it. If we don't do it, what happens? There's nothing. I mean, we would be out of compliance and we would probably lose state money some way.
Actually, technically, if we don't adopt our own ordinance, we would have to adopt their ordinance. So
yeah, we have to do one way or the other.
One way or the other.
We're under, so I'm going to vote for it, but just I wanted that on the record that I oppose it.
I guess keep in mind, though, that since we are adopting our own ordinance, we've actually tailored it to the city of Vista. So we've actually created a benefit, I guess, to the standard single-family homeowner. So we try to do the best we can to alleviate that burden.
Commissioner Rossler, please.
Hypothetically, I live on a half-acre lot, turned the water off in my backyard 2 years ago, and I'm in the process of redesigning the landscaping in the backyard. Does the ordinance apply to me?
Would your installation require a building permit?
I am not building any structures. I did that last summer.
Then at that case, no, it would not. It stipulates in the state requirement that it would only rehabilitated landscapes that are associated with a building permit or landscape permit, plan check, or design review is subject to the ordinance.
So last summer when I built my shop in the backyard, the fire ordinance made me fireproof the thing, and I spent a bit more money. But if I'd have done that this year, then I would have had to rehab the landscaping according to this ordinance, because I did get a building permit for that.
If the landscaping was associated with the project.
Okay. All right. Okay. I just had one minor question that came up while I was reviewing the document, and there was a list of prohibited plant species.
Yeah, that was actually
Page 71 of 90 in the staff report. And the only thing that caught my attention was the rosemary species. You have any clue on why that's included in the list?
I'll be honest with you, this list was actually included in the original ordinance itself, so I'd have to refer to staff, the director, if you have any idea, but unfortunately I don't have an answer for that.
Because the rosemary grows great in Vista, so...
We'll check it out and get back to you.
Okay, all right. Other than that, Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion to recommend to the City Council that we adopt the amendments to the code relating to water efficient landscaping.
Commissioner Garrettson, please.
I have a question. Page 7 of 90, item number E, or letter E. It says, the purpose of this is to encourage the modification of existing landscapes in order to reduce the amount of water used for irrigation purposes. The city acknowledges that modification may require upfront financial investment. What does encourage mean in this situation to me as a homeowner? Does that mean encourage? I'm going to get a knock on the door and say, we encourage you to do the same thing with your house that your neighbors did with theirs.
Well, I think what this ordinance does is it's the starting point, I guess you'd say. It's the minimal that's required, I guess you would say. So I think what this probably does is it's indicating that it's pushing the homeowner to look that direction and actually embrace the fact that you could use alternative material and efficient landscape irrigation systems in order to improve the environment and improve a resource that's limited at this point. But
Commissioner Garrettson, the city, if the homeowner is in compliance with the letter of the law in the ordinance, that is sufficient, and there will be no knocking on anybody's door. The encouragement speaks to the intention of the city and not what the city would do or how it would approach the homeowner.
Is that like saying that the police encourage you to only go 55?
No. I would actually say it's an overall intention or goal on the part of the city, but the city looks to the operative provisions of the ordinance in seeking compliance from the homeowners or the public, and so this is just like there would be no way to enforce this particular provision.
Why is it there?
It would be
what role does the city have in encouraging me?
This is a fairly common, almost a great deal of legislation does have a purpose set forth, and so if it were to be in front of a court, for instance, the court is able to actually look at the language of the purpose, and it might be a useful tool in interpreting the ordinance. But I'm letting you know that when the city enforces its codes or does a plan check, it looks at the operative provisions of the ordinance, and it's not going to be using this provision or knocking on anybody's door.
Is it a slippery slope?
You could say that.
I would strongly encourage to get that clause out of there. What impact would that have? Take out E.
I'm just telling you that this is commonplace. I mean, you can make a recommendation, and then it can go to the council. But this is not an enforceable provision of the ordinance. It's a statement of purpose.
Why would we put something in an ordinance that's not enforceable?
I guess this is you're having an argument regarding a common practice that's used throughout the United States, throughout the state, throughout. We do this all the time, and this is the first time anybody's ever commented on it and objected.
Yeah, the word encourage here is under the section of purpose. We're defining the purpose of the ordinance. The purpose of this ordinance is to encourage this, to encourage that. That's the purpose, to encourage, et cetera. I'll second the motion.
Thank you so much. Student commissioners, McKenna and Carla, any comments on this one? Nope. Thank you. Mr. Conley, can we vote? He did. Commissioner Carroll seconded.
Is the removal of this part of that motion? No, it's not. Okay. I missed the motion. That's what happened.
Okay. Let the record show that the item passes unanimously with Commissioner Garrettson voting no. All right. Thank you. Commission staff discussion, council action, and reports.
I only have one item actually two things to mention. One is I believe I emailed you all that the City Council will have a follow-up discussion next Tuesday night about the Planning Commission selection process. They're simply debating how commissioners are appointed. None of what comes out of that discussion will affect any of the seats here tonight, but just to be aware that that's happening. The next Planning Commission meeting will be on the 17th of November. It's an early design review meeting, so we'll be looking at one, possibly two multifamily projects for early design review. One is the proposed condominium project on South Melrose Drive, 1630 South Melrose. It went to the council on a general plan discussion a few weeks ago. Another is a possible senior affordable housing project down on Civic Center Drive, where the existing motel is next to the Union Bank. And that's all I had to report.
Thank you. Reports, comments from the commission members? From the city attorney? I think we're adjourned. Thank you very much. They took it away from me.